tangled in crab line. Our team was able to go out and assist that animal. We did everything we could to reunite this animal with its mother in the wild. Unfortunately, after multiple attempts to release this animal, it was not making its way out on its own. We do work with a stranding network, and all of our assignments comes from them. And anything related to cetaceans, so anything that's a dolphin, a whale, is going to be determined by NOAA, so the Marine Fisheries Society, and they were ultimately the ones who made the call that unfortunately, because this animal was not going out on its own, it was going to be transported to another facility, SeaWorld, for potential rehabilitation.
Oh, SeaWorld, that's where it's going?
Yes, ma'am.
Male, female, do we know?
Unfortunately, I'm not aware at this time.
Do we know about an age?
I do not have an exact age for you. We do know that it is a juvenile. It is definitely not fully grown. It is still a calf.
So juvenile means what, under 2 years, or?
Unfortunately, I do not have an exact age for you.
Okay.
It is definitely, we believe, under 2 years,
Okay.
but it is a juvenile.
Can you tell us sort of about the process today? Like, how did you hear about it, and then what is the first step? Who shows up, and what do you bring? How do you even know what you're going to encounter?
So we would like to first off thank the public for calling this animal into us. We would like to remind everyone that if you do see an animal out in the wild, please do not engage with that animal. The best thing that you can do for that animal is to call the proper licensed people to come and interact with that animal. In that case, they called our stranding hotline, and then we got authorization from that stranding network to intervene in this case. So we do wait for authorization before getting involved in anything. From there, we did our attempts to release. We want to make sure that we do everything we can to keep these animals in the wild and keep this animal with its mother because it is still a juvenile. And unfortunately, after those multiple attempts at release, that is when the call was made by another organization. So in this case, the National Marine Fisheries Service, that this animal would have to be transported.
And that means for the rest of its life it will live in captivity?
Not necessarily. So ultimately that is going to be decided by the National Marine Fisheries Service. So they're going to do multiple assessments of this animal and decide if it is a releasable animal.
Was it injured? Because you said it wasn't making its way out on its own.
That is something that I am not able to answer at this time. I was not able to do a physical assessment of the animal, so I cannot give you an answer to that.
Describe, would this dolphin be able to make its, I mean, it's so young, it would need its mother to survive?
Just typically, you don't have to be
typically,
specific.
yeah,
We just
you don't
want
have
to
to be,
understand
like-
so we're not inaccurate in describing, like, okay, here's what happened today. Is it fair to say, in most cases, a juvenile dolphin would need its mother to go back into the wild? It couldn't just go out on its own without the mother, typically, right?
Dolphins under a certain age do need to be with their mother. They are still reliant on their mother.
Okay.
Again, I don't have an exact age for this animal, so I cannot give you a...
But we're trying to figure out, like, what was the determining factor in it coming off the beach or being released?
The determining factor would have been the fact that it was not making its way out on its own. So what we are looking for is an animal to be strongly swimming on its own, taking good breaths, able to control its own movements.
Gotcha.
And unfortunately, this animal was not fitting that criteria. At that point, that information was then transferred to another authority, and then that society would have decided that this animal, unfortunately, would have been a candidate for rehabilitation.
Now
Can
the
you
dolphin,
go through and describe the process again, like you move the dolphin slower out there, like kind of describe what you guys are doing out there again?
Of course, so what they were doing was supporting the animal. All we're trying to do is give supportive care. So they were watching the animal, making sure that it was breathing on its own, moving on its own. At that point, they decided to attempt a release. They attempted a release several times, and unfortunately, the release was unsuccessful. So at that point, the call was made to transfer the animal.
now this dolphin was documented, right? You track them, by their dorsal fins?
I'm not involved in that research project, so unfortunately I'm not able to say if this animal was documented. But I would like to thank all the people who did come out to help us today. We had a huge assistance from the police department, from the local lifeguards, and the public as well. We could not have done what we did without them, and we thank them so much for their contribution.
And so at this point it's just going to be assessed at SeaWorld, and it's in their care now.
At this point, it is being transferred. Ultimately, what happens to the animal will be decided by the National Marine Fisheries Service and the care of a veterinarian.
And you mentioned a crab line. Could you just maybe speak to fishermen out there, what they should be doing so that a situation like this doesn't happen?
Of course, thank you so much for bringing that up. Human interaction and anthropogenic material is unfortunately something that we see very commonly. So making sure that we're disposing of fishing line properly, that we're not leaving ghost traps out. Any traps should be regularly attended. Keeping sure that our waters are clean and clear of this kind of ghost debris is a great way to ensure that we're not getting into these kinds of situations.
And for someone who, you circle your job around helping animals, to see a situation like this with just a baby dolphin, what's it like for you?
Of course, so we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can. We are all in this field because we have very strong love for these guys, and we want to make sure that we're doing all we can for them.
And the people in this situation did the right thing because, we've seen in the past sometimes they try to interfere and touch the dolphin themselves.
I have no comment on that. I was not here for the beginning of this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate you.